Yeah.
Okay, everybody. So we want to say welcome to you tonight. This is the continuation of the Suicide Prevention Week that is had been started by the Long Island Spiritist study in gosh, I'm not even sure of when it started, but it's been going on for a very long time since I've been a part of Inner Enlightenment Spiritist Center. And this is also being sponsored by the Spiritist Tri-State Spiritist Federation. So we're really excited to have you with us tonight and to continue the beautiful work that was started with last Saturday's lecture by our dear friend Susanna. And tonight we have a very special friend who is a wonderful speaker, one of my favorites. But we're going to first we'll have our opening prayer by our friend Pedro. And just so you know, all of this is live streaming on YouTube and as well as Facebook. And after Vanessa's presentation tonight, we are going to have Q&A. And so as this goes on, you'll be able to interact with the Q&A that's available in the chats in both of those app features. So now I'd like to ask our dear friend Pedro to do our opening prayer.
Thanks, DJ. Before we move on, I just want to wish you all happy Thanksgiving in advance. It's been a challenging year, but we're sure that we're going to succeed through faith and with the help of the spirits. With that in mind, Almighty God, full of mercy, thank you for all the love and for all the light that you bring into our lives. Thank you for all the teachings of the Spirit of Lights that are being quoted in the different books of Spiritism that brings joy, that brings fulfillment, and that brings peace to our spirits. Please help us in this time to be together more than ever through the love, which is the most powerful force through the whole existence. We humbly ask for protection for our families and for our loved ones. And with that, we say amen. Que así sea.
If I could tell the world just one thing, it would be we're all okay. Not to worry, 'cause worry is wasteful and useless in times like these. I won't be made useless, won't be the idol with despair. We'll gather ourselves around my faith, for light is the darkness most fear. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. But they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. Poverty stole your golden shoes, it didn't steal your laughter. And heartache came to visit me, but I knew it was an ever after. We'll fight, not out of spite, for someone must stand up for what's right. 'Cause where there's a man who has no voice, there our struggles sing. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. But they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. In the end, only kindness matters. In the end, only kindness matters. I will get down on my knees and I will pray. I will get down on my knees and I will pray. I will get down on my knees and I will pray. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. But they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. But they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. We are never broken. Hands, we are God's hands, we are God's mind, we are God's eyes, God's hands, God's heart, we are God's eyes, God's hands, God's eyes, we are God's hands, we are God's hands.
Thank you so much, Isabella. That's so beautiful. I've got to watch her grow and sing in Spiritism, and she just continues to get better and better. We're very grateful to have her participate tonight. So this evening's presentation is from one of our dearest friends from Virginia, Maryland. Her name is Vanessa Anseloni. She is someone who I'm very grateful to, because I've learned so much through your teachings and watching you do your presentations, whether they've been the things that you've done on Facebook Live. Oh my gosh, I'm going to just try to highlight a little bit of what Vanessa has done. She is former president of the U.S. Spiritist Federation. She founded. No, you weren't the former? No.
I've never been president of any federation.
Oh, well, that's good. That's okay. That's,
I refuse to be.
we have enough accolades. She is a professor of neuroscience. She started and she founded Kardec Radio, also the Spiritist study group there in Virginia as well. She's the founder of that. She does Spiritist magazine, where she's the editor-in-chief. She has helped to write and translate some of the books into English for us, which I'm extremely grateful to have those. And she's also the co-author of a book called The New Generation with Divaldo Franco. And just like, in addition to all of these different elements and Kardec Radio and getting all of the wonderful speakers that we get to learn from there, she also started something, I think about 2 years ago, if I'm not wrong, or 2.5, the School of Emotion.
It's been since 2015.
It's crazy that time's gone by so quickly, but everybody that participates in these groups talks about how helpful it has been in their journey. And it's such a difficult thing for us to grasp and navigate. And certainly, I think it's something that probably parlays itself well with what we're doing tonight and what we're talking about now. So it is such a sincere pleasure to welcome tonight's speaker, Dr. Vanessa Anseloni.
Thank you.
Just a little note. Also, Kardec Radio is also a sponsor of suicide prevention as well. Has been streamed every year without leave 1 year no notice. So thank you, God, for that. Right, Vanessa? We have Kardec Radio done every year. Thank you so much. And also, the suicide prevention is the unification. All the Spirit Center together, come together to put this event. So we have this unification, the group. So this will not belong just to one entity, the union of all. So that makes us very close to such a very challenged cause. Thank you so much. And this is the 9th year, and next year will be the 10 years.
That is
Very, very fast.
time rushes by too quick.
Yeah,
So much.
thank you.
Please be welcome.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Dulce. And it's interesting because Kardec Radio is turning 10 years next year, as well as the Suicide Prevention Week. Certainly the good spreading itself all around, the good spirits. Emmanuel used to say, and he wrote in many of his books through Chico Xavier, that the good always comes from God. This is mainly stated in a book named Harvest of Light. It was translated by Kardec Radio, and there is a program about it. You can find either on Kardec Radio's YouTube or Facebook page. He says, everything good comes from God. Everything good that comes in our lives, in everybody else's lives, comes from God. God is all there is. Today, we're here to talk about suicide, causes, consequences, but mostly about how our emotions, they actually contribute to either preventing suicide or escalating to suicide ideation, attempts, and the actual suicide. Many people ask, where does this suicide ideation comes from, right? If you go through the very symptoms, we're gonna say that some people, they feel that they are trapped, hopeless. Some feel intolerable emotional pain. Others are very worried about violence, dying, death. Some people, when they develop suicide ideations, they do it because they have mood shifts. They have this inner talk of revenge, guilt, shame. Some experience agitation, anxiety. They have personality changes, sometimes sleep pattern changes. Some have, they are drug addicts or alcoholic. They have alcoholic behavior. Some people, they have this risky behavior to increasing levels. Some other people who engage in suicide ideations, they allow depression, panic attacks escalate. Some other ones, they have other types of issues such as sexual addictions as well, or deep, severe remorse, self-criticism. There's so many ways to observe how you go from these thoughts, these feelings, to suicide ideations. And in the medical, psychological research of the causes of suicide and attemption, we'll just say a few to you, some risk factors that may increase the chance of suicide ideation. Some studies point to history of violence and suicide in the family, history of child abuse, neglect, or trauma, mental health issues, feelings of hopelessness. Some people, because they feel they lost something, they lost their work, or they lost friends, or they lost finances, or they lost a loved one, or having a gun or lethal things can be a risky factor as well. Or they are under stress because they are being discriminated and prejudiced against, including the LGBT community. They experience that almost so often because of the stress of so much that they are exposed to in our society that is not kind, as Isabella sang so well. Kindness, we lack more kindness in our society. There are so many reasons why. Risk factors that may lead to suicide ideation, including depression, mental disorders, uh, of many types. Why we're saying this? We have never seen in any scientific study, any study proving that suicide attempt or suicide is related to low IQ or high IQ. Our intellectual intelligence has nothing to do with it. What does that mean? It means that it's in our emotional, spiritual life there lies the reasons why we gravitate to it. What does that mean? We need to know more about ourselves, who we are. We need to know more about our very lives, not only this life, but understand ourselves as the continuity of many lives and know how to manage pain. Pain, emotional pain, is a big part of suicide. Huge. Every single study, they never rule out the aspect of emotional pain. And just to give us a kickstart to understanding more about the relationship of pain and suicide, we are bringing to you in a more poetic way Khalil Gibran from the Prophet when he has a very poem about pain. We read a bit to us. And a woman spoke, saying, "Tell us of pain." And he said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding, even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. And you would accept the seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the seasons that pass over your fields. And you would watch with serenity through the winters of your grief. Much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter portion, the potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. For his hand, though heavy and hard, is guided by the tender hand of the unseen, and the cup he brings, though it burn your lips, has been fashioned of the clay which the potter has moistened with his own sacred tears. I know, you may say, what does he mean by all that? We need to feel it more than know, because know somewhat we know. And people, as we speak, commit suicide. The statistics tell that at every 40 seconds, there is someone attempting it. What do we do? Where do we go to understand more about it and prevent it? Since this is the prevention week of suicide here, how can Spiritism help us? Can Spiritism help us? Okay, so here goes. If we go to the core of it all, since the Spirit spoke by Kardec, we're going to know that Spiritism comes to destroy materialism. And destroying materialism is not to destroy money. It's not to destroy gold and diamonds. It's materialism inside of us. It's this heart affiliation that we have with materialism. Are we materialistic? Let's think together. Are we materialistic? What is to be materialistic? To be materialistic, it's when we think that matter is all there is. And we may say, no, Vanessa, we're spiritists. We're not materialists. Oh, okay. But then we think that our family is more important than anybody else's. No, I don't think, but we dedicate ourselves more to our families. And sometimes we feel we could give our lives to a family member, but not to somebody else who doesn't have our blood. Do you treat differently people from your family and other people? We know many people do, and majority of people on earth do. It matters. Blood matters, and they even teach their children. Oh, that person matters because they have the same blood, the same name. Materialism. And many go to churches and even spiritist centers. For example, there are people who are married. And when they are married, they give their life. They work together. And when they are not married, it's like it doesn't matter anymore. What is that? Materialism. Because I believe that signing a marriage certificate does the deal. Bonds us together. What is it? This is materialism. And we believe that if I have a children of my own, biologically, they are really my children compared to possibly foster parenting or adopting a child. This is materialism. Materialism is when I look at somebody and I see that they are a man, and I think they're great because men are superior to women. Materialism, because science has never proved it. It's still a dogma of a few minds or many minds, depending on where we are. Materialism is when I look at somebody who decided to change their gender, and I think they don't value the same. Materialism. Materialism is when I see somebody from another nation and I treat them differently, thinking that they are different just because they are born in another country. Materialism. Does it hurt? It hurts. It hurts to know that we may be important here and not so much somewhere else. It's scary. It brings fear. It puts us into a state of defense, a mechanism that we may develop chronically in our everyday lives, wherever we are in this world. For some people, it's so hard being materialistic to the point that they look at themselves in the mirror, they don't find the beauty that they want, and they kill themselves. Or they kill themselves because they are being bullied. The materialism in the world is what kills us. Yes, it kills relationships with ourselves, with God, with everyone. No doubt Spiritism is here to redefine our foundation and to bring a new paradigm for our lives. You and I are being invited by Spiritism to shift this paradigm, the materialistic paradigm inside of us, and live a life as spirits living on earth. Yes, we, according to the science of the spirits, we are here to learn and to progress and never regress. These are the good news. After all, the Spiritist teachings are all about the good news, the gospel that comes back again and brings us joy, hope, and courage. When we talk about suicide and its prevention, we need to see the feelings that are generated by materialistic way of living. Fear, anxiety, sadness, depression, disgust, aversions of any sort, they come, they are generated by a mentality that is still very materialistic. When we talk about selfishness and pride being the foundation of it all, we're saying that when we rid ourselves of this materialistic way of being and living our lives, we'll more likely than not shift our paradigm and be more spiritual, more coherent with our nature. Different emotions will be triggered. So here we're going to bring to you a proposal of thought. There are two pathways: the materialistic pathway and the emotions they generate, the consequences of it all, and the spiritual paradigm and the emotions they generate and the consequences of them all. In science, there's nothing stating to us that a rich person is better than a poor, that a person from a certain race is better than from another race, that a person from certain nationality is better than another nationality, etc., etc. So it's showing to us that we don't have much proof to justify this materialistic way of being and living our lives. But when we do live that way, what are the emotions that are being generated? We're in constant alert, much like the philosopher of the Illuminist times, right? Different from Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Thomas Hobbes believed that people were the wolves of society, that humans weren't naturally social, and thus they needed to protect themselves, and they needed to defend themselves. In Spiritism, because Spiritism is a child of Jean-Jacques Rousseau's thought, because Pestalozzi, who taught Kardec, learned from Jean-Jacques Rousseau the foundation of his thinking. When we understand that we're social beings, the law of society, and we can read this in the Spirit's book by Kardec, there lies the statement, we are social beings. Today, our studies in neuroscience shows to us it's so true. We have a social brain. We have mirror neurons through which we see each other and we tend to feel what others feel. We also we have inside of us molecules like oxytocin, endorphins, that are triggered especially when we have interactions with one another. Recently, neuroscientific studies show to us that we thrive for interaction as much as we need food to survive. This nurturing need is so primal inside of us that you can even identify in higher animals. But isolation is hard. Abandonment is hard. When we are cornered by life in challenges, we need help. Our brain believes in what we feed it. What we feed it. If I feed hope, it will thrive on it. If I feed despair, it will develop itself around it. So science shows to us that we need to master what we nourish ourselves with. That's why at Kardec Radio we have this slogan, nourishing our souls with Kardec Radio. Why? Because the Spiritist teachings are true nourishment for our souls. That's why we need to disseminate these teachings wherever we go. Starting, for example, in the book Heaven and Hell, when we read about suicides, true cases of suicide, for example, the case of the mother and the son. The mother saw her son dying, and she couldn't take that pain of the loss of a loved one that she loved so much. She hugged him and said, "Go. I'll be there to receive you." Nobody understood what she meant. She retreated to her bedroom, and when they saw, she killed herself. She thought that she was going to meet her son. She thought that by killing her body, she was going to go cross over and receive her son. And to her surprise, she did not. Now read to you. And if you want to read it, go to the book Heaven and Hell by Kardec, chapter 5, part 2, or listen to it at Kardec Radio. We have the whole part 2, all the cases, including these ones. 54 beautiful voices that kindly read this in a beautiful way. And this is their mother and son. This was March 1865. And Kardec evoked the son and asked, "Did you know that your mother committed suicide out of despair over losing you?" And the son said, after dying, for medium, "Yes, were it not for the sorrow her fatal decision has caused me, I would be perfectly happy." Poor excellent mother. She couldn't bear the trial of a temporary separation. Pray for her. So they go on and on. Benjamin C., the son who discarnated, came back and said so. When Kardec evoked the mother, this is how she comes. "I want to see my son," she says. "Do you have the power to deliver him to me? They are so cruel. They took him from me to lead him into the light, while they left me in the darkness. I want him. He belongs to me." And she doesn't dialogue with anyone. She is in this mental state. She is in this mental state that caused her suicide ideation, despair. Then the good spirits come and explain to us the rule of it all. As Khalil Gibran said, pain is for all of us. Pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. When we're experiencing the pandemic nowadays, we saw some rates of suicide escalating, especially among young people, gravitating more to drugs, alcoholic behavior, risky behaviors, and depression and anxiety, panic attacks. Why? We're lacking a foundation of emotional stability that is only driven by a spiritual paradigm in our lives. Because then we become invulnerable. In the Spirit's book by Kardec, he gets to know and shares with us in a question and answer that we become invulnerable and more emotionally stable when we put all of our hopes in the spiritual life. Doesn't mean the spiritual after death, in the spiritual now, because you and I are spirits living on earth. We are spirits living on earth. I don't cultivate my spiritual nature after death. It's right now. I am connected to this physical body, but I am not encapsulated in this physical body. The world may look at us and judge by what the physical body shows, but I am not what the physical body shows. I am much more than that. I'm connected to this physical body. So when I cherish my true nature beyond the circumstances of the material life, I thrive. I am invulnerable to suicide ideations. Why? Because I see myself as I am. Challenges, pains, and sorrows, they come to open our horizons. Suffering, Leon Denis says in the book After Death, pain is law in our world. And the good spirits through Kardec, they compile a whole chapter in the Gospel according to Spiritism to teach us to deal with our pain, our hopelessness, our despair, our anguishes. Chapter 5 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, Blessed are the Afflicted. And there is a subtitle there that tells us that only calm and resignation leads us to prevent madness and suicide. So if I want to be mentally stable and also emotionally stable, spiritually stable, I need to practice calmness and resignation. And that means surrendering ourselves to the designs of on high. Avoiding overreactivity. Avoiding rebelliousness. Rebelliousness before life certainly creates the room, a good recipe for suicide ideation. It's when I wish that my mom, my dad were different. I wish I were born differently. I wish I had more money. I wish people loved and accepted me. This is rebelliousness before life. I'm not accepting life. Thus, I'm not accepting myself. And I'm creating room for mental associations with incarnates and discarnates of destructive nature. And here comes when our emotions will be the password to our Wi-Fi connections. In terms of thoughts, there are only two types of mental currents through which we connect with everyone in the world and in the universe. Constructive mental currents, destructive mental currents. These are, according to André Luiz, in the book Mechanisms of Mediumship, the only currents through which we may connect to. There's no neutral position. So either we connect with the constructive one or destructive. And he explains how we do it through our emotions, through our daily habits. Some people say, Vanessa, I pray every day, and yet I feel the sorrows and the pains. Okay, if you pray and the next thing you do is connect to the internet and watch porn, you're just annulling the efforts you made. Why? Because when you watch porn, it's not entertainment. You're connecting to destructive mental currents. We are using the sacred resources of life for pleasures that do not justify a very elevated life. In Spiritism, we understand that watching porn is related to a vampire connection, spirit vampires. They connect with us. So sexual addictions need to be addressed, or else we'll be connected with minds of very sick spirits, incarnates and discarnates. Plus, we become vampires ourselves because we are enjoying what is not ours. The definition of vampire in Spiritism, as per the book Liberation by Andrea Lewis, is when I use the resources of others and I have done nothing to contribute to. It's when I watch porn, which has escalated during the pandemic. People engaging into that type of behavior. We also know that the emotions that we create when, for example, we may be praying and then we call somebody, and then I call somebody next to talk about somebody else's life, gossiping. And if people say they don't gossip, right? But when they talk bad about people, they say what they heard people saying. How can I be happy after a prayer if I engage in slander? Andrea Lewis says in the book Mechanisms of Mediumship that slander is, gossiping and slander is one of the ways in which we engage into destructive mental currents. It's the fake news we're seeing on social media every day. People creating fake news just like that. They heard and they change, and each person that says change something else. That's why Jesus said, you know the tree by its fruits, like Chico Xavier. When we read all these books, Thought and Life, Liberation, etc., there's no doubt that his fruits are so many that whatever people may say, it doesn't really match with the much he gave. Now, we are being asked, how can I sustain an emotional stability, a mental stability, a spiritual stability, and prevent suicide? By changing the way we deal with our daily lives. For example, Emmanuel says to us that Spiritism is a university of redemption in the book Harvest of Mediums. Chapter 3, University of Redemption. Through Spiritism, we have daily invitations to change how we feel and to edify our feelings. How? By practicing virtues. When we see people that have shady choices and the next day they're engaging in spiritual religious behavior, we need to help people to come to coherence. Yes, to coherence. There is no way I will be practicing materialism and believing that only the rich are good, that only the beautiful are good, that only those who are famous are good, and be happy. I can't. We're just like this mother who believed her heart was dying with her son and her son didn't die at all? How materialistic are we? Because materialism is the source of suicide. When we truly practice spirituality in our daily lives, the chances of creating suicide ideations diminish. Why? Because when I practice spirituality, in spirituality, we're talking about feeling ourselves as immortal spirits daily. It's when I'm going to make a choice of speaking to my child, to my husband, to a friend, and I make choices that pertain to that feeling of immortality, knowing that whatever I say now is going to be resented in immortality. Those choices will ground me in spiritual credits. Credits, yes. This is a message by Albino Teixeira that is not translated yet. Through Chico Xavier, he says, when we decide to stop our car and help a homeless, instead of going on to work, when we stop our work to help a colleague in spite of our deadline, because it's more important to help people than to fulfill our daily duties to the world. Because in the eyes of God, our duties are not the duties that the world thinks. We're being asked to rid ourselves of this materialism that makes us believe that you're good when you have a position in an organization, that you are only going to be respected when you create external things. So here's an invitation for all of us. The book 50 years later, Celia came from a high society in Rome, ancient Rome. She became Christian. It was against the standards of the time. She defended her mother, almost got killed by the father, but she was expelled instead from home. She had nowhere to go. She could have quitted. She didn't quit. She kept faithful to God, herself faithful to God, in spite of the hardships. In the eyes of the world, she was either dead or somebody who was not a good daughter. Did she believe in her mind that she was not a good daughter because her father didn't understand her heroic act? No. She didn't buy into the way the world saw her. Her brother-in-law despised her. She kept herself composed. She didn't bow down to what the materialistic standards of the world were telling her. She even had to change her identity to live in the world and survive. But more than that, she loved. She loved people so much that she was able to forgive, to forget, knowing her true nature. Dear friends, the world may tell stories about you, but you are the one who has the power to tell the world who you really are. The world may not know you, but you have an obligation to know who you are in your divine essence and strive to shine in your essence and rejoice daily. If the world says no, you're going to say yes because you have God inside of you. The world is going to put you down and you're going to keep yourself up, standing up, because God loves you and because you know you. Let us not accept what the world says, because the world doesn't know, as Jesus said. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. But you know who you are. Your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your spouse, your child, your neighbor, your colleagues at work may not know who you are and do what they've done to Bartholomew at Jesus' time, one of the greatest disciples of Jesus. Read chapter 8 of the book Good News. Take heart, one of the most beautiful. And he feels that despise, that lack of understanding, that lack of support. And Jesus says, Bartholomew, have you heard good news now producing joy? I come to bring the good news for immortality. And he encourages Bartholomew to know who he is. You're a child of God. God loves you, and that's all that matters. So when people think of suicide, let's put our hands in our hearts and protect it from these emotions that are not happy, and say, I am a child of God. I rejoice in it. God loves me and I love God. I am the heir of the universe. And let us keep moving forward, knowing that we are children of God. That's the best way to prevent suicide. It's when we cultivate our unique spiritual essence. We are immortal spirits, temporarily here. One day, the angel of death is going to call us up. We're not going to be sad. We hope the family members and people who stay will rejoice because we graduated. And when we graduate by natural death, we will sing hymns of joy because we were faithful to that school year in our immortality. Each reincarnation is a school year. So you and I tonight are being invited to rid ourselves of emotions like guilt and remorse, fear and despair, hatred, revenge, all feelings that do not add anything, and substitute them by the certainty that God is the only power of the universe. And if God loves us, who is against us? May God bless us in these reflections as we stop here, as we gravitate to the question and answer.
Wow. I have to jump in. It was amazing and amazing. So powerful. Very, very powerful talking. I think for always with the experiences that I have about so many people in my family who had committed suicide, the way that we can help those who are suffering with depression and many illness and disease, the way is that is given to them a powerful talking about God, how to hold them in difficult time. We cannot dwell our minds and our thoughts with very with pain, because that's just bring us down. If you are in pain, we need to reach out for help. We need to reach out for friends. We need to reach out for therapists. That's the only way you can help ourselves. right, my dear friend Vanessa? That's what I do when I need you. I knock the door. Hey, are you there? I need your help. Whether as a friend, you know. So please, I give the words to you, my dear friend Jay.
Thank you. I don't think we can hear you, Jay.
Yeah.
Is your mic off or is
Yeah.
he?
Let me send a text.
We want to hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't hear you. What's happening? Where's Gustavo? Come to our rescue.
Yeah. Pedro, do you have any question for our dear Vanessa while we're waiting for today?
I just want to add that I'm so glad to be part of this, because it's been your messages has been very inspiring to me. I can definitely relate to a lot of examples that you brought, because this is like, as you mentioned, a school. We come here not to be punished. We come here to flourish, to expand our spirit, to by our own merits save ourselves. And we have given the most beautiful opportunity of being incarnated and then collaborator with each other, and then nurture ourselves into these dialogues with our brothers and sisters in the other side, which is part of our family. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pedro.
There's a mic. Hey TJ, there is a mic in the bottom of your screen. Just click on it.
And there we go.
Yeah.
Yay! 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 Forgive me for your patience with StreamYard. Yeah, Vanessa, I just think like it's there's so many aspects of that I've come to appreciate through Spiritism, and you know, I think there were a lot of ways in the beginning when I came to Spiritism that I didn't really think, oh, I'm making a conscious choice to commit suicide, but I was making like small little things that were that in my unconsciousness like was causing me to shorten my life. And today I think because of lectures that you've given at the center and the teachings that we study in our groups together, I've learned so much more. And whether it's the thoughts that we think, even sometimes the way we nourish our bodies. You know, when I was a little kid, I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And then growing up, you know, I just lived that way. That's the way I went into the world. And I think what you have taught, especially in the neuroscience, is that everything has this systemic connection.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, the subtleties of those things, and how they in essence are a little bit like a suicide?
Yes, such an important comment, TJ, because indirect suicide, by definition, it comes since André Luiz' book No Solar, when he discovered himself as somebody who committed suicide. And he's like, I didn't commit suicide. Then the voices were saying, yes, you did. And then he found out in the spiritual realm why was he being treated as somebody who committed some form of suicide as well. And, you know, and then he got to know of indirect suicide when you smoke, when you drink alcohol, when you eat things that are not healthy for you. So let's talk about things of that nature. For example, alcohol. Some people tell me, oh, Vanessa, just a little bit. I say, come with me to the lab. Okay? I'll show you how in 10 seconds, you take a little bit, a tissue of the brain, and you immerse just 10 seconds into alcohol, and how it dehydrates that cell. And you can look at the microscope. You don't need hours, seconds, because alcohol dehydrates. If it dehydrates, you lose life. If you lose life, you are what? Committing suicide. Because little by little, if our bodies are connected to our spiritual body, molecule by molecule, when I kill a cell of physical body, I'm discarnating, right? I'm making that connection. There's a rupture in that connection. So that's suicide. And then you may say that on earth, it's almost rare when we don't encourage such behaviors, because it's either food or any type of beverage, or there are so many ways, risky behaviors of all sorts. When I see children, for example, parents encouraging children to risky behaviors like biking, mountain biking. Okay, you can do hikes, mountain biking, as long as it's safe, because if it's not, you are encouraging your children to risky behaviors. And risky behaviors is easily connected to some form of, it can trigger suicide ideations. So you are predisposing yourself. Like when we see these games and there is like competitions, extreme games, extreme sports. I remember when my daughter was in kindergarten, and at a birthday party, they were invited to a place where you were climbing. Or now it's very common, young children, they go to these places and they jump from place to place to place. When I saw somebody was jumping on the back of my daughter, I said, this cannot be normal that you spend your birthday jumping in risky behaviors. This cannot be normal. And then if something happens, who is at fault? Because people think that is normal. So we're seeing a society that is still not fully aware of so many things that we are doing, from eating to not sleeping well, right? Some people, they indulge in going through the night, like watching things and partying. When you're young and you don't know, what can you say? But now that we know, it's ever more complicated. Andre Luiz, unfortunately, didn't know, and yet it was considered indirect suicide. So there is much for us to adjust in ourselves. But TJ, I want to mention something. When we speak of these things, it seems so much like we're telling people to be just like the Pharisees, right? The Pharisees who were like so righteous. No. Spiritism doesn't prohibit anything, doesn't judge us, but it's inviting us to a beautiful, let's say, optimization of our lives. We're optimizing the resources instead of wasting them. So I think instead of wasting the resources in a reincarnation, Spiritism is saying, hey, why don't you save that type of energy and channel to this? At the end of the day, if you do the math, in immortality, there's so much to gain, right?
What are some resources that you might tell somebody that isn't familiar with Spiritism, that doesn't have the fellowship that we have in community in our study groups? Like, I'm thinking in particular of someone I know who is very isolated. She has a single mother with 6 children, and she's overweight. She's almost diabetic, and I have great concern for her. And I think she also has a concern for herself too. But at the same time, she doesn't know what to do. Like she's so overwhelmed. Like how would you approach someone like that?
Yeah. Okay. Thought is life. I would say everything begins here. As a mother, I understand we may be overwhelmed. And it's physically overwhelming because taking care of children is physically demanding, and especially when you don't have much help. And even if you have help. So we would say, where do we begin? We need to dream the dreams of God and not of society. Remember, society is dreaming dreams that are making us sick. We need to dream dreams of ours. What is that dream? It's that dream of myself. Like, your physical body may not be at your best, but the cells are listening to it. And this is an exercise that I do with my daughter, Virginia, that I would recommend to anybody. I say, Virginia, remember, your cells, mostly water in your body. How about whatever you say, they are listening, they are vibrating. So if you say to that person, oh, that person is bad, the cells think that they are bad. They don't think you're speaking to them. It's like a perfume. If you use the perfume and pass on somebody else, it sticks on you. So whatever you think, whatever you say, it stays with you. So then one day she was so funny. She turned and she said something, then said, oh, physical cells, I don't mean you. I mean somebody else is saying, they don't understand that. They understand what you said. So if you want health, and if we want balance and stability, the cells will respond to our thoughts. So I would say there is a program that I love very much, and it's nothing to do with spirituality per se in terms of the ostensive practice, but it's taking care of the body. But I like the attitude of the teacher. It's Walk at Home by Leslie Sanson. I've been following her for a decade and a half when YouTube wasn't big. The DVDs and DVRs were in place, because you can tune into YouTube, put her channel, and see her attitude. And she says, just walk, and the attitude. Praise yourself for being able to do those 15 minutes. And tell yourself good stories. You tell your good story, not the world. The world thinks that skinny and lots of babysitters and wealth is the real deal. Wait until the afterlife and you see the reality. And you see that when you are taking care of 6 kids and you may be overweight and you may be not receiving much help, maybe you're closer to heaven than you imagine, but you need to tell that story to yourself. Do not allow anybody to tell your story. Own it. Own your story, because it's between you and God.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question from Bella. She's 14 years old. It's Marcelo Cabral's daughter.
Oh my God.
Isn't that cute?
Horrible children. How do we help others who aren't spiritists and in our schools and communities who are considering suicide? What a beautiful question, Isabella. These Isabellas in the world are always fantastic. So, beautiful question. Thank God, Isabella. Thank God. We don't need any label to help people. No, we help the way Isabella Silvestre sang to us. Kind. kind the way you are, because I know you are, Bella, and your parents are a role model in kindness. But we would say, be kind, be attentive. How can we help? We need to reach out to people. One thing that pushes people to suicide is our, and we'll say this in a more scientific way, we wait, it's like the threshold of response. We wait too long to reach out. If you see somebody's isolated, somebody using dark clothes, always looking down, not interacting, be the one to reach out. Like today, believe it or not, I was driving and there is a homeless nearby our home. She's always there. And every time Regina and I plan on driving by and doing something, she disappears. Today we stopped and she was packing. She didn't even see us. She was packing to cross the street. I called her. I said, please come back because it's the third time we're trying to help you and you disappear. And she didn't say anything. I said, can we help you? I see that you have a box here. Can we at least drive it to you? And she said, almost crying, she said, no. Are you sure? We can, tell me how we can help you. And she said, no, I can't. So Carol was with us. She said a prayer. And we said, okay, we're going to help thinking of God at this moment. But at least we reached out. At least she knows she's not invisible. At least she knows she's not invisible. And that's where we fail most often. We allow people to feel that they are invisible. And it's our fault. We have social responsibility. So, Bella, we would say, anything we can do to make people feel that they are visible, that they are seen, that they are important, that they are not alone, is a way to prevent suicide.
I'm thinking of the bottom of Dulce's screen that says, your life matters.
Yeah, there you go. It says it all. Your life matters.
I
But we need to say it to people, right? We need to reach out to them.
Yeah.
We can't keep it to ourselves.
Vanessa, I would like for you to clarify one question for me. Nowadays, it's I believe, very confused. At least for me, was at one point. Self-love. The confusion sometimes, I had one point of my life that I thought that I truly loved myself, but I was loving the exterior of myself and had the idea that I loved the exterior of myself. And I had to go very tough situation to embrace and truly love who I am as a fullest, full, and a child of God. And today I can see it to be very conflicted from some people. Can you share some thoughts on that? Because for me, it was existential question, was very hardcore question. I really have to dive into God and figure out who I was and love myself. Was very hard work to accept for who I am. And I believe can be very challenging for some people to get across to that tunnel.
Yeah. We would say, there's a psychologist in California. She was interviewed at Cardiac Radio years ago. I met her in 2009. And she was the first one to put together a dictionary of emotions. And she was the first one to bring the emotion cards, the onion head cards. And she uses the onion to as a symbol of our emotional life, because she says peeling feelings. There are layers. So I think, Dulcie, when you talk about this experience, we need to know that in our evolution, we will inevitably get to know of parts of ourselves that we didn't know. We will sometimes get real about ourselves, and then will be its reality check. Who do I love? The person I created, or who God created in me? So it's again time to go to the core, as you said, who we truly are, and understand that what the world sees is not us. Because the world is still immersed in illusions. We still like the young and the beautiful and the powerful and the wealthy. It's that we still believe in it. We still think that if you really are doing the right things, you're healthy and wealthy. You can't be sick if you are doing the right thing. And people judge. And how can you be a great person if you're not wealthy? Right? How? Many people think, if you're so great, how come you're not so rich? If you're so great, how come you're not famous? If you're so great, how come you're not? And we look at ourselves in the mirror and we believe in it. And then if we don't see that image portrayed, we feel defeated. So we identify with these external features. So now Spiritism is inviting us to the core and saying, look, André Luiz goes to the book and says, a beautiful woman, the book in the realms of mediumship, and other books. He repeats the lesson in some other books, but he says, she slept, and in the spiritual realm, he was shocked by the way she looks. She looks like a witch, and physically, she's beautiful. So, who are we indeed? And Spiritism invites us to this the inner discovery, this external that we seem to love. I am somebody because I'm married or not married. If I have children, don't have children. If I have a title, don't have title. It's if I love myself because of these features, the day I don't have them, I lose ground. So Spiritism says, you're losing ground to know of your true self. As you said, Dulcie, we're children of God. And that is the most important thing, because to be children of God, my friends, allow me to say, it's more than if you were children of the Obamas, or those who like the Obamas, for those who like Trump, children of the Trumps, okay? Children of whomever you like in this world. Oh, she is Gandhi's child, okay? We're talking about child of God. It's beyond it. We don't know what it is. That's why we're here inviting ourselves to feel the joy and the pleasure, because it's intrinsic, of being a child of God. When you think you are the heir of the universe, it's surreal, the experience. No matter what the world thinks of us, then we understand why Chico Xavier never bothered with people who bullied him, who put him down, including spiritists, including spiritists. He never engaged in believing what people saw in him, a poor, humble person, no titles, not very impacting physically. He saw himself as he is, and that's why he succeeded. He really learned to love himself and humble himself before God. Right?
I have a question.
Sure, Pedro.
Can you share like how can we reach out for someone that it's like, let's say, immersed in the circle of feeling sorry for themselves, or just they don't wanna accept something that it's meant to be because as you mentioned before, it's something that it's required to move on and evolve and grow.
Yeah, wow, Pedro. When we talk about these feelings that you're mentioning, self-pity, if you talk to a physician, for example, an optometrist, we could say in an analogy, they need to change their lenses. They need to change their lenses because the way they are seeing themselves in the world is distorted. They have some form of short-sightedness. So we need to correct it. We need to correct it. Because when we feel sorry for ourselves, we are not seeing things clearly. So we need to correct the way we're seeing. If the person allows it, if the person gives you an open door to say something, you can help in introducing new ways of seeing. So we would say in psychology, we need to help the person give new meanings to the same old things. And I'll give an example here. One day a woman told me, she said, I don't understand why my mother gave me to my grandmother to raise me for a few years. I don't understand why she did that. And then we investigated the life. So she was feeling sorry for her, like, I didn't have my mother. It happens to so many people. It's a common story for so many people. And then when we investigated, we saw, in her case, that her grandmother is very loving. And she had a maid at home that was very caring and loved her as well. So she had two maternal presences who were very kind and loving. And on the other hand, she observed and we identified that the mother had other children, moved to another country. She was married to the father who was very aggressive. So we said, you were protected. It's as if your mother got a treasure and said, I can't keep this treasure here because it's not going to be cared for. Please, Mom, I trust you. Keep this treasure with you. Care for it. So we gave it all a new meaning. And then when she saw the story, she was like, I never realized it. It was a blessing. So she thought she was pitying herself like, oh, I didn't have my mother. Actually, she won the lottery of emotions because she was raised by the grandmother who was so loving and caring, by the maid who became a family member in her life, very loving and caring. And she was saved from aggressions, from the possible unhappiness of the mother, etc. So we can help the person identify the blessings that are now in disguise. Makes sense, Pedro?
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I guess Patty Soares has a question, right, DJ?
Who?
Patty Soares.
Oh, Patty. Oh, yes. She says, how can we help individuals facing gender identity? I still see depression hitting them hard, leading them to the unthinkable.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate. We have a long way to heal our society. Our society is very materialistic, Patty, as you know. We still believe in what we see or what we don't see, but we want to see. So we would say, how can we help them? Own your identity. More important than being man or women is to be an immortal spirit. It doesn't matter the body. It doesn't matter what people see. The other day I was watching an interview by Malala, who won the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize when she was very young. And she understood that it's about being human at the end of the day. It's human to be allowed to be educated. She's not this fake feminist that wants the same rights as men just because. She wants it because it's human. And she owns it. And she is not, and she's showing to us how we need to own our identity, what we want to be. What we want to be. We want to be something that makes us feel good. Own it. You can't expect people to understand, to accept. In her case, she wants to have the right to educate, to be educated, and allow other children to be educated, like women, girls, same rights. When we talk about gender identity, we're talking about the much struggle that women have been facing in those worlds since ancient times. And women who approach me too, and it's beyond being homosexual, heterosexual, transgender, because we still have to conquer what Jim Carter said, it's the ultimate social frontier to respect and value women. When we do so, you write it down, we will no longer have problems in gender identity. No longer. Because it's only when we respect the feminine, when we value the feminine, because we're in a world where we still value the masculine in men and women. But what Jesus brought to us, love, is all about the feminine. It's all about embracing everyone. It's all about kindness. It's all about compassion. But we still, as Emmanuel says in this book, Ceifa de Luz, Harvest of Light, we still believe in the power of force, in the spirit of force and not the force of spirit. When we really feel that the force of spirit is all there is, we'll have it all solved. The problems between men and women and everything beyond it. So first of all, how do we approach? You need to accept yourself first. If you accept the world to accept you first, it's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. We attract what we emit, and we can't enforce. People will do it at their own time, or will do it at our own time.
Any other questions that we might want to ask?
It's the time to end. 9:30. Sorry. Vanessa tem a little one. We have a little Virginia. You already passed the time. A lot. Okay. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you
so much today. All the great work. It's the first time. Thank you so much, Pedro. I mean, thank you for all of you. Gustavo, please be behind the camera. Be behind the computer. Amazing work. And I mean, I don't know anything about technology. It's very hard for me. But look, each one of you is doing such a great work for being here tonight. And I'm sure this will help so many people who are so thoughtful, informative, educated, educative. All of us will be is being helped by, and also many other people throughout the social media. For sure, this time will be helpful for us. Thank you. I think Bella has no more music for us. And good night for everyone.
Good night.
Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Call me, just call me. Call me, call me.